Hello, hello, name's Anon. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. We finally made it! This is gonna be the final Wizard of Legend build that I will personally be assembling, testing, and publishing, i.e. presenting on this channel. If you need more info on that, I would highly advise you to return to video number 56. Come here. I will be talking more so about the future of this channel, perceived expectations, yada yada yada, in the introductory part to the video, also noted in the respective timestamps of the video in the video description down below. So go check it out if you're curious. But for us, I'd say, let's get right into the build. Let's not hesitate around. I finally want to get going here. Today's build is called Volcanic Eruptions. And beside cosplaying as a volcano for this build, ooh, spoiler, I know, we're gonna be combining two elements that I've never used in this kind of conjunction ever before. We're gonna be combining, of course, earth and fire to cosplay as a volcano, trying to poison the area around us, trying to burn everything at the stake, and just have a jolly good time throwing around comets, glowing, melted rocks of flaming death. I don't really know much about volcanoes. Not sure if you can tell, but I'd say let's get right into the video because this theme is actually kind of really cool, and it's gonna be incorporating the earth element, which is my favorite. So naturally, I'm gonna be liking this one quite a lot, regardless of how it will actually play out. For our robe, of course, we will be running the Venture robe. Not the Fury robe, even though Fury is a decent fit too. Fury looks vicious, it looks like lava, it looks like, I don't know, like the burning rage type of robe, right? Very vicious, very bright, warning you of its danger. Venture robe is kind of the opposite in that this robe is quite unnoticeable, let's put it that way, but it does still look quite scary. And what I'm after here is more so the stats than the looks for today, which again, Fury Robe might work for you, but Venture Robe is what we will ultimately settle down to try out here today. Venture Robe decreases our max HP from 500 by 40% all the way down to 300 max HP out of the gates, and then increases both our damage, run speed, and cooldown reduction by 10% respectively, which is very, very nice. So you essentially get a double damage up, a reliable damage up, unlike with the Fury Robe, whereas the Fury Robe would drastically increase your signature charge gain and your signature ability damage. Here, the Venture Robe increases your damage dealt overall by 10% and reduces your cooldowns by 10% respectively, i.e. it is essentially a double damage increase. As the more frequently you can use your abilities, the more damage you will be dealing, the more base damage they will be dealing, the more base damage you will be dealing overall, right? So yeah, run speed is decent, but we really don't care about that. It's all about the damage increase and the cooldown reduction. We want a tiny bit of cooldown reduction for this build, at least I do, so that's the main reasoning here behind running Venture Robe instead of Fury Robe. Also thematically, Venture Robe, it looks kind of like a figure of ash or something. Like you could probably interpret something into the actual looks of this robe, and therefore it will probably still fit the build overall. I just look like a lump of coal with glowing, dangerous red eyes, so to speak, right? Additionally, in comparison to the Fury Robe, I believe starting things off at 300 max HP thematically also works a little better, as we are not a healthy, long-term, haven't exploded for decades or centuries type of volcano. Instead, or millennia, sorry, I forgot about that one. That's probably the most realistic one beside the centuries. I'm not sure about like the Krakatoa, for example, and similar volcanoes. Like, how long haven't they exploded exactly? It's gotta be centuries, right? There's no way it's millennia, but I'm sure there are volcanoes out there that haven't exploded for millennia, that have simply turned into regular old mountains today. Either way, having less max HP means that we are essentially an erupting volcano. We are dangerous. We are off to a good start, right? We are gonna self-destruct here for the greater good of destroying everything around us and being the most gorgeous, explosive, dangerous, and most importantly, lethal natural catastrophe to ever grace the face of Wizard of Legend universe. So yeah, I think Veteran Robe is great. It fits perfectly. Let's move on, I'd say. Enough talking about the robe here. Getting into our starter relic. Now this is going to be quite a fun one. I have already made a build using it, but so what? It's quite a great item. I can definitely recycle it. It's an offensive item, and it is in precisely the category of my most favorite items, as there are only 2 items that do this kind of thing, then have this sort of effect that can be categorized like so. It's Whimsical Explodium, which adds a 50% chance that enemies will explode in a large AoE around them when defeated, dealing a large amount of damage. Very nice. 1 of every 2 enemies that we will be killing will, statistically speaking, explode, potentially causing chain reactions. So an explosion might kill 1 enemy, which explodes, killing another enemy, which explodes, and yada yada yada. All of a sudden you get a full room clear. Now, while that is quite unlikely, a 50% chance is insane for this game. Usually the highest of chances that you would find would be probably on a robe at like 30 to 35%, or more realistically on items, 20% is usually the maximum in terms of damage related, but also armor related abilities, with only a handful of exceptions which have to be very, very special, like a level robe or any other scaling relics. For example, the Adventurous Quill, or whatever the hell it's called, the Quill, whatever it may be called, and Crocodile Heart, and similarly scaling curse relics that have a huge downside because they don't give you anything right away, or they even take things away from you, like your max HP, but then they scale over time, right? That's usually how the game compensates for, or how the game warrants a very high damage increase or cooldown reduction increase and similar things in the case of a level rope, right? And a 50% chance, let me tell you, definitely breaks that scheme entirely. And it's great. It's very, 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 very good. This item is amazing. It's insanely fun to toy around with. We will just randomly explode enemies left, right, and center, which does kind of fit a volcano, so I'm fine with it. I like it. I just really love looking at this item, and it feels great playing with it, especially when playing underwhelming builds that struggle a lot getting off their damage numbers. Putting them out there and actually finishing off enemies, but then you finish off one enemy and it might just explode and deal. First of all, it deals a little bit of extra damage for you, so you won't have to deal that damage, which might take a painstakingly long period of time. But also, beside the fact that it deals a little bit of damage for you, it can literally cause chain reactions, and it can you can abuse the hell out of that damage dealt for you. Just finish off one enemy and it might finish off an entire room, for example, right? Or you always try to group up enemies and then finish them off one by one to cause the largest amount of additional damage possible using the Whimsical Explodium. Either way, this is a very helpful damage tool, and it's great in every arsenal, regardless of the type of build you're playing, unless of course you're playing boss rush. This thing, I believe, does also work on summons. I'm not so sure, actually. I don't really know that by heart. I'm not sure it works on the Sura boss, for example. But even if it didn't, it'd still be quite helpful. Except for boss fights, of course, as there are no additional enemies that you can kill in boss fights. And usually they probably wouldn't be adjacent to the boss anyway. So this is solely useful for clearing floors, which after all is the greatest part and the greatest hurdle of Wizard of Legend, or in Wizard of Legend, actually getting to the bosses, not besting the beast, it's getting there in the first place, and Whimsical helps out a lot with that. But enough having been said about the Whimsical Explodium. I'd say let's get into the nitty-gritty, starting things off, or finishing things off rather, with our abilities. Of course, we're going to be mixing, as aforementioned, the fire and the earth element, and we actually have fire, earth here as a pattern. That's neat. So let's start things off with our basic, which will be Flame Strike. I do this like one quite a lot. It's very explosive in a literal sense, as you essentially combust into the direction that you're looking into at roughly a 180-degree angle in front of your character, so you cover everything in front of you, and this thing is quite nutty. It has a huge range, a huge width, and it is super fun to use. It deals decent amount of damage. It's a charge ability. That means that you have to hold it in order to fully get its damage off, and then it usually will consist of 3 hits, as it actually does consist of 3 hits, the third of which is the charged hit, which takes a little bit of preparation as you have to fully charge it. So you cast 1-2 while holding it, and then the third will be slightly delayed due to the charging animation. And then it will also be empowered somewhat. In this case, it's gonna be dealing slightly more damage, like so. Well, slightly is a little bit of an understatement of the century here. This thing actually does an incredible amount of damage even without Adventure Robe. Let me tell you, it is quite fantastic for dealing damage, and due to its coverage, it's a fantastic crowd control tool overall. So the regular hit deals 9 damage here with the Adventure Robe included. A final hit dealing 36. That's 4 times the damage of a regular hit. That's crazy good, crazy high value. You always want to get off the charged hit. Additionally, this thing is a melee basic Arcana. That means you can slap a Dark Arcana on it, tripling its crit chance. That means you can slap Cannies on it, and Evening Gloves, and Chrono Gloves, because it's a charge-based ability, and yada yada yada. So this thing can be enhanced to the moon and back. It's super, super strong. When enhanced, literally enhanced, or upgraded rather, which is a better wording in my opinion anyway, the charged final blast now burns enemies and destroys enemy projectiles, which unfortunately the base version does not do. However, since it is a melee ability, you can also slap one of the gloves on it, which will then enable it to destroy all projectiles hit, even with a quick tap, which doesn't deal the greatest amount of damage, but at 9 damage, it still sits comfortably around the best abilities in this game, even for just a very quick light tap. And with that, you could destroy a large amount of projectiles coming your way, essentially any and everything coming your way due to its huge width and coverage overall. The burn obviously isn't super important, but it's a neat bit of extra damage dealt. So its enhancement is decently powerful, albeit not extremely necessary nor essential. This ability already deals a crap ton of damage as the base version. It simply becomes much more useful when enhanced, because then you can use it, or apply it rather, to a broader spectrum of situations. Oftentimes with these melee, rather short-ranged abilities, you will find yourself unable to fully commit to the ability because you find yourself with a bunch of, say, rogues or archers and knights in the same room. There's usually a variety of different enemies, some ranged, some melee, and you always have to pay attention to the ranged enemies as they can always get to you regardless of their movement speed, for example. Unlike melee enemies, while you can walk away from the melee enemies and you can commit to hitting the melee enemies, while hitting the enemies with your basic, a ranged enemy might just so happen to aim at you in that moment and actually charge up a shot, whether it be a mage or a summoner or somebody else, like an actual summon or whatever else it may be. And so you usually would have to cancel out of your combo, or maybe not get off that charged hit, just tap and then walk away like so, right? It's kind of hard to explain. You can see me charging this, right? It charges decently fast, but I can also not charge it at all, or I can abort the charge entirely, like so. I don't even get to charge at all. I abort it immediately. I essentially let go of it immediately before it can even start the charging bar animation, right? This is what you'd have to do usually, and when slapping projectile destruction onto this, you have to do that a whole lot less, and you can just keep committing to your combo pretty much regardless of whatever the hell's going on. Due to its coverage, you will be hitting all the melee enemies in your room, including probably lances that are slightly too far away from you, or that would otherwise slightly be too far away from you. And then you can also destroy other projectiles coming your way in the process. This thing has a decent uptime as well, so you don't really have to worry about timing this properly to catch all the projectiles, so to speak. I think you'll be fine just when enhancing this. It's just not essential, especially not for what we will be doing with it. This is not the main focus of the build, though it can easily be the main focus of any given build. So it's a decent backup or default fallback plan. Let's move on though to our dash, which is a lot less exciting, admittedly so. It's Toxic Trap. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite dashes, but I'd say I'm one of the few people that play this game and actually enjoy using Toxic Trap. This dash, let's be honest, it doesn't do a whole lot. It's quite horrendous at doing anything for you, the player, and its range additionally is way too tiny. Its radius overall is horrendous. This is a charge-based dash, as with most dashes, so you can slap extra charges on it using a what's it called? The Ring of Chest Friendship, for example, or the Boots of Frenzy. You can slap 99 charges on it, but even then, this ability is not really gonna become significantly better by any means. Even if it had unlimited charges, it simply wouldn't be very good because its effect cannot really be stacked well. It does deal a decent amount of damage, but that damage is applied in the form of a status effect, mainly. While the ability can deal immediate damage, most of its damage comes from the status effect that it applies, which, as the name suggests, will be poison. The worst status effect in this game. It deals a large chunk of damage at 25, 5 damage a tick, unmodifiable for us here, as our base damage doesn't affect it whatsoever, but the tick duration, or overall, sorry, the status effect duration is ungodly long. It's like 3 seconds or something. It takes forever to tick down entirely and get all of its damage off, and only then can you actually reapply poison. So you have to not only wait it out for your damage dealt, but also to wait it out to reapply poison. So even if this thing had 1,000,000 charges, you'd still have to wait every single time and only be able to apply its initial damage, which is not that high either. But let's actually first get into what this ability does, right? As you may have never seen this, and I would absolutely understand if you didn't. So you dash forward, or into any direction for that matter, and you leave behind a toxic vial that you throw into the air, essentially, that you toss into the air from your initial dash location, which will then, shortly after you've dashed, land on the ground, popping, or shattering, rather, and leaving a tiny AoE, a tiny circle, which will poison enemies. The vial, like the initial destruction, the shattering, does cause a little bit of damage, and then the AoE will continuously, for like a second, also poison enemies that walk through it. First of all, the duration of it is horrendous. It's way too short. Second of all, the area is way too tiny for what this dash actually does. And I feel like the vial also comes out way too slowly, right? You're assuming that enemies can just dash right through. But on later stages, enemies just are super fast, especially knights and lancers. They don't give a shit. Not a flying fuck. They just, you know, like rogues teleport around. Rangers dash across the place, and so do knights and lancers. They literally just jump across, or they dash right through, right past the vial before it can even drop, before it can even hit the damn ground and pop. All the enemies will have just moved way past it, and so the vial just becomes increasingly less useful, which is so painful for an ability that isn't useful in the first place. It looks like so. You look at that 11 damage. It takes forever to even get off the first tick of damage, so realistically this ability deals 11 damage. Let's be honest here. In the heat of battle, this thing does 11 damage. It won't even get off a single tick of poison at that point. It doesn't stun lock enemies, as poison ticks down way too slowly to even interrupt enemies. It might occasionally, but it's so unlikely to ever be useful or helpful to you overall. Now you might ask me, why do you like it then? Well, I just like status effects, and I like Earth, and I want to like this a lot, but it's very hard. It's quite a horrendous ability. I'm not delusional about this whatsoever. I just like it for some reason. I don't know why. Curse me. This has a rather short cooldown on the flip side, so you can use this quite a lot. And when enhanced, you will be throwing out 2 toxic vials, one behind you, as per usual, and one in front of you. So you will have essentially an 8 shape of these circles, which will cover slightly more ground. But then again, let's say you have a bunch of enemies approaching you from up here. You dash, they walk through the first area, they can't be hit by the second vial, they walk through the second, and they're still poisoned, right? It doesn't affect them whatsoever. It doesn't, like, increase the duration of the effect, for example, or deal extra damage. No, it does literally nothing. So the poison vial overall, the second charge, does absolutely nothing at all in that given situation. And it is a very common situation that you would dash away from opponents with your zoning tool, which is usually your dash, right? Not into them with your dash in the first place. At least with dashes like Toxic Trap or the fire equivalent, which leaves behind the firebomb, right? If you recall that. So you want to dash away from opponents and make them walk through this area and take the damage to maximize your damage output, but also your survivability a little bit. This is, after all, not a survivability focused dash by any means, as it doesn't interrupt enemies, doesn't do a very good job of holding them back or pushing them away from you, or any similar effects in that regard. So yeah, even for what it is supposed to be used for, this ability is just not useful at all. So the enhancement is horrendous. I can't recommend ever getting this unless you have way too much money, because then this tool can actually be used for a tiny bit of extra damage, offensively dashing into enemies instead of just away from them. But again, why would you ever want to do that? I don't know. You shouldn't. You absolutely shouldn't. Now, the poison does stack up neatly with the potential burn from the enhanced flame strike, as well as with Whimsical Explodium, because poison deals damage as a status effect regardless of your base damage, which is really the only advantage to poison. It has a decent amount of damage that it deals, decent damage per second, so it does help out very whimsical builds. Ironically so, builds themed around using poison and poison-related abilities and relics are usually the weakest builds in this game, bar none. Probably. Like, in my biased opinion, right? Wind builds are probably much weaker, but still, poison deals horrendous damage. Poison abilities are, generally speaking, horrendous. They truly really rely on you getting off the poison. They don't just bring poison as a side effect, they make it their main focus, usually. And that makes these abilities horrendous in terms of the damage dealt, usually. Often also in terms of their like the coverage overall, in terms of their cooldowns and other aspects. So it does make weaker builds stronger, but not in a like I'm gonna focus on this mechanic type of build here. So we're gonna be using it thematically speaking, because the ashes spilled or shot out rather from a volcano can cover up the sky, like depending on how large the explosion is, can cover up the sun and the sky for like decades, right? And it can literally cause a second well, goddammit, what you call it, like the frozen times ice age, a second ice age, right? Like the movie second ice age. It can literally cause an ice age from the ashes deteriorating just so incredibly slowly, as the amount of spilled ashes could be so astronomically large, it will literally cover up the sun for many, many years to come, just introducing another ice age to the world. And additionally to, well, that, which let's not talk about that, that's very horrifying, IRL, real life horrifying that is, Toxic Trap alludes to the ashes additionally being quite carcinogenic, I believe is the word, so causing cancer and many other diseases, as after all, it's ashes, alright? They're poisonous, you're not supposed to inhale them. Overall, volcanoes are incredibly toxic. If you've ever, heard of or watched of like how fire is actually not the most dangerous thing about fire, it's actually the smoke coming from fire, which just clouds your vision, it fills you up entirely, fills your lungs, it renders you unable to move, unable to breathe, and you just flatten on the ground at some point, because there is no other way to live at that point. You just suffocate from the ashes, you're unable to breathe, you cough up a lot, and it's just so dangerous, it's so toxic. You can literally be poisoned from smoke at that point, which is very, very deadly and very likely kill you. Very likely this will kill you over the actual fire, say a fire breaking out inside of your home, say in the kitchen or something, like another realistic place, and you're like sleeping next room, right, adjacent to the kitchen. Likely you will simply suffocate in your sleep, right, from the smoke, or you will wake up unable to breathe and find yourself suffocating slowly over time, more so than the fire actually burning you to death. And you would absolutely feel that fire in your sleep as well. It would wake you the hell up. So Toxic Trap, to reiterate on why we're going to be using this, it's just a neat ability that won't be super useful, but we will be using it as it thematically fits, and we really needed an Earth ability here, so Toxic Trap definitely fits the Volcano theme overall better. Additionally, I'd provide a second alternative in case you simply refuse to use Toxic Trap, which again, I would understand. Just use Spike Track instead. It also works decently well, as volcanoes can obviously cause, oh man, I'm not bewildered in the field of natural catastrophes or climate catastrophes, so I have no clue what it's called, but right in Haiti, right, when you have earthquakes and similar catastrophes, what often happens is when you have very muddy ground, the ground will simply slide down, right, all the way. It collapses in itself, essentially. Huge holes are created by earthquakes, and, well, you call it a mudslide in that particular case. I'm not sure what you call this phenomenon overall, if it even works, if it's applicable to regular ground, but Spike Track is essentially a mudslide equivalent to a, well, whatever. I don't really know. To real life, I suppose. So, volcanoes can obviously cause earthquakes, right? It's literally the earth shaking. That's how volcanoes are made. That's how they are created in the first place. It's by tectonic earthen plates, right? Shoving against each other and creating these huge mountains, which are connected essentially to the core of the planet. And out of that core, the lava just stocks up over many, many decades and centuries, and eventually, like a cork, it blows up. The volcano literally blows up and spills out this huge amount of blown away rocks and magma, lava, however you want to call this. And this obviously causes shaking of the earth additionally. And so earthquakes usually accompany tornado outbreaks. So, and well, mudslides accompany earthquakes. So from that kind of chain of derivatives, you could use Spike Track thematically speaking as well. Also, it feels a lot smoother. It's just a lot better overall, instead of the Toxic Trap, that is, right? Only if you refuse to use Toxic Trap, however, as we will be using Toxic Trap. It is also a trap, which is neat for this build. We will be focusing on luring enemies into areas that we will be filling up with our damage abilities, for example, our Flame Strike, predominantly so. Moving on to our next trap, which will be a fire ability, which I've never used in a build before, Engulfing Fissure. Quite an embraceful name, honestly. I do like that one quite a lot. It's very thematically pleasing for sure. So you deploy a bunch of fiery traps. 3. With the base version of this ability, which has a very short cooldown, by the way. Just look at that. 5 seconds or so. These things linger around forever. You could probably cast this ability twice, maybe even thrice in a row, while these will still linger around like so. Right? You can see the old one still being here. Slowly vanishing, and boom, I got it up again. Like, this is crazy neat for area control. It looks very good. Very, very cool. It looks like little magma coming out of the ground. Like a tornado would have essentially... Sorry, not a tornado. Like a volcano would have essentially ripped out pieces off the ground. And, like, underneath that shallow ground, you have a lot of lava flowing. Like, it is very... pretty much beneath the surface, like immediately beneath the surface, and yeah, I kind of like it thematically speaking. I don't really have too much to say about this, to be honest. So you create these traps which don't count similarly to a Toxic Trap as neither melee nor range, which again we don't really mind. It's okay for us. We don't really need this ability to do a lot of damage similar to the Toxic Trap. It's just a zoning tool, so you can pull this inside of a corridor, for example, and the enemies will try and walk right through, but they can't because, oh no, the traps will shut them down. And what actually happens when an enemy walks into one of these traps is, well, they will burn, they will take a decent amount of damage, they will be pulled into this hole and stuck, essentially drawn back into it for a short period of time, which is nice. So you can not only cast this for area control as a preparation tool, but also literally cast this in a group of enemies, especially due to its short cooldown, to just get off a quick amount of damage, a decent, albeit very small radius, small radius, however you want to put this. Crowd control tool. What I want to say with that is it's very, very hard to hit on a group of enemies. The enemies may not be spread out whatsoever. They have to be already clumped up, so you can use this to keep pulling them in. It's just trying to hit with a tiny ass triangle, right? It's really not that easy to hit this. It's also fairly low range. immediately in front of your character or even around it in this particular case. Right? Okay, actually, I always cast it around, so I have to be in the middle of the enemies actually to hit this properly, which makes it all the more difficult to use as an offensive tool. Just use it defensively to stuff up corridors, or make yourself an exit, or buy yourself some room wherever you need some, whenever you need some. It has a very short cooldown, and again, let's keep mentioning that it's quite important here to this overall ability. It makes it a lot more useful. While it deals a very low amount of damage, as you can tell, 6 damage a tick. And what is it, like 12 damage innately, which can crit. It deals fairly low damage compared to other standards, but due to its very low cooldown, we can spam the hell out of this ability, and that makes it a lot better, especially with our Adventure Robe additionally increasing its base damage and cooldown reduction further. That's amazing. When enhanced, you create, I believe, a 4th and probably a 5th fissure additionally, which makes the radius of it a lot larger. I won't show you, but you can trust me on that right now. So it will pull a lot more enemies into it naturally, and the enemies will remain in it for longer, taking a lot more damage. So the enhancement here is like an actual damage enhancement, not just coverage, as the sentence down here suggests. It's quite useful. You absolutely want to find yourself getting that just for floor clearing. Overall, if you need more boss clearing potential, upgrade your Flame Strike, I'd say, or your Venture Robe, which is not the greatest upgrade as it only enhances these values by 5% respectively, except for your max health decrease. So you will be having 15% damage, run speed, and cooldown reduction increases overall, which is not super worth it, but still decent, I suppose. More decent than a Toxic Trap upgrade. Other than that, I'd say upgrade Flame Strike for single target damage against bosses, that is, or Engulfing Fissure. Just overall, if you need more coverage in your rooms, if you find yourself lacking with controlling certain areas or shutting down certain enemies, upgrade your Engulfing Fissure instead. Overall, generally speaking, I'd say you should always strive to upgrade Engulfing Fissure over Flame Strike, but in certain scenarios you just really need Flame Strike to deal a lot more damage and be a lot more usable, so that can also be very viable. Let's move on to our final ability piece here, which will be easily the best ability of today's kit, beside the Flame Strike, that is, but the highest damage ability as well. It's gotta be Terra Ring, which is very fun. I'm a huge fan of this. I have played a shit ton of builds focused around Terra Ring, earthen only builds, but also builds with this as a focus, as I used to play for like a year or two with nothing but earth only, and just you know, exploring the variety of earth when learning the game. It was amazing. When I started the game back then, I played nothing but earth, and Terra Ring was one of my absolute favorites, beside the Seismic Strike, I believe it's called, which was my actual favorite signature at that. Terra Ring is amazing. You cast a bunch of earthen spikes coming out of the ground in a large area around your character, like so. This does count as a melee ability, so you can slap a Dark Katana on it. It's a signature, so innately you can generate a ton of signature with this, like so. Okay, it's not a lot, alright, but slap a bunch of other items on it that synergize well with it, slap a bunch of cooldown reduction on it, and all of a sudden it will generate a ton. As it hits in a very, very large area around you, it is guaranteed to hit a large group of enemies all the time. Therefore, it just slightly needs a boost to its signature charge gain from like a family seal, a perfect time crystal, and similar items. Granted, again, for a signature it doesn't generate a lot of signature charge, but it deals a ton of damage at 50 base damage, which is awesome. That is quite average, or 55 in this case due to the Venture Robe, and it has a very short innate cooldown. When unenhanced, it is especially interesting to look at, as these rings don't, or the ring, the like one ring that you can see here, is not just innately here. Instead, it starts expanding from your character in rings outwards. So in kind of a wave motion, these earthen spikes travel outward from your character, which takes a long ass time. It's a very slow moving Arcana, which is not even a bad thing necessarily, because it means that it can essentially hit the same enemy multiple times. potentially, anyway, which is very nice. But since we will be using the signature, it's already enhanced right out of the gates, which makes these rings, or the ring overall, simultaneously come out, dealing all of its damage at once. But as the sentence here suggests, and as I've already just told you, it will deal slightly less damage overall. So this is pretty much the only enhancement in the game of a decent ability that straight up says this ability, when enhanced, deals slightly less damage, which is a little depressing, but it's still a very, very good ability because of its signature, which is very, very fun to look at, and it feels just so rewarding to pull off. So you just cause a shit ton of Terra Rings to appear, essentially. You just cast this ability like 6 times consecutively. Look at that damage, my friend. Woo! It's all melee. Slap a Dark Arcana on it and you're good to go. It's just so easily enhanceable. It's just a bunch of extra base damage or crit chance will do you a huge favor here. Very, very good damage, very good coverage, and a decent amount of signature charge gain. Very good cooldowns. So super nice spacing tool, super nice even a single target damage tool, and then any targets approaching you and that innate target of you will also very likely be hit with the Terra Ring and very likely die. It doesn't have a huge knockback, so you don't knock enemies out of your signature, which is nice. It doesn't anti-synergize with itself for that reason, which is very valuable, especially for an earthen ability, which usually feature a large amount of knockback, which can literally ruin themselves. Like, say you have a charge-based ability, and the first charge knocks enemies away, or it dispositions them in a way that doesn't allow for you to hit like a very efficient or an as efficient second use of the ability. Well, that's an anti-synergy, my friend. The ability doesn't synergize with itself. You're meant to use it occasionally, not consecutively. But with the Terra Ring, you could slap 99 charges on it, and you can just keep spamming it. It does have a tiny amount of knockback, as you can see. It knocks enemies slightly away from you, but never so far away that they will be outside of your general range, which is very, very neat. And this element resembles the earthquake part of a volcano eruption, or rather the earth shaking. It doesn't necessarily have to be an earthquake, but just the earth shaking, houses coming down. You know how it is, you know how it goes. You've probably seen it in the in BBC documentaries or other documentational movie clips, for example, that a volcano outbreak just shakes the earth pretty much worldwide. It is detectable worldwide. Seismic activity is just incredibly scary, and Terra Ring is the embodiment of that. In my book anyway, it's super cool. Spikes coming out of the ground, impaling your enemies. So damn cool. I love it. With all that out of the way, I'd say let's actually finally get into play, but first, as per usual, we have to go through the build specifics. Which won't be too long, I promise. I've already been talking for way too long at this point. I finally get going. Finally want to get going. Sorry. Let's start things off with the intended build playstyle. This is a trap build, an area denial or an area control build, which doesn't deal a very high amount of damage. It doesn't generate a ton of signature overall. So what you want to do is play more so defensively than aggressively. You can use your abilities very aggressively, as we have previously mentioned with the Toxic Trap and the Engulfing Fissure, but these abilities are also the main reason you can exactly be super aggressive, or you require certain things like certain items or health regen or defense or cooldown reduction in order to do so, or the ability enhancements, right? I've mentioned that too. Generally speaking, you should try and approach the game overall with a defensive approach, a defensive mindset. For example, as aforementioned, you are decent at controlling corridors. You can put down a fissure, you can put down a trap, and then when enemies come too close, you get closer, you approach them, you Terra Ring with your large range, and then you focus that up from afar with a bunch of flame strikes. Again, literally taking up the entire corridor. You can see this is a massive corridor. This is very much unlike the actual dungeon corridors. It's like 1.5 times the width of a regular corridor, but we can still easily cover it with our abilities as long as we center them decently well, and we aim them decently well at a large group of enemies. So you shouldn't struggle too much controlling tight areas, and where there are no tight areas, when you simply have a large room, get into a corner, which eliminates two directions that enemies won't be able to come from, i.e. the walls, and then make a tight area around you. Just be mindful, make sure that you make this area, that you design this area in such a way that Lancers, for example, won't be able to simply stand here and knock you over from over here, right? So give yourself enough space so that you can catch all the enemies, is essentially what I'm saying here. Including rogues, just stand inside of the corner, hit a rogue, they will try to teleport into you, and then walk slightly away from there, and you should be good to go. I'll follow that up with the Terra Ring, for example, or Flame Strike. You should be good to go. Just make yourself a bunch of room. That's what we're going to be trying to do here today. Work with your status effects, work around them, work around your Whimsical Explodium. Watch out that you don't lose too much HP, that you don't trade too aggressively, as you only start on 300 max HP, which can be depleted very quickly, let me tell you, especially early on into the game, but specifically more so, especially more so rather, when you pick up items that make you take more damage, a Paramassacre and a Double Trouble. Those are the items that come to mind here mainly, but also a Double Tor and similar items. So you have to be especially careful at that point, but especially, that's my recommendation, at the beginning of the game you want to play very defensively and not be overtly aggressively. As long as you don't have the damage to back up your aggression, or to warrant it, rather, you shouldn't be too aggressive. Just be passive, stay back, observe, let enemies climb up naturally, and then abuse the hell out of that with your large AoEs and with your Whimsical Explodium procs. There you go. Moving on to potential problems, since we start things off with Earth and Fire, we're going to be weak to Set, we're going to be weak to Fire, we're going to be weak to Earth, but these elements have nothing in common, they don't interact with each other, they react in neutral in both ways, both Fire to Earth and Earth to Fire. That means we're not going to struggle in any particular dungeons here with our entire build. We have evenly spread out our damage between Flame Strike, our basic, and Terra Ring, our signature, with the trap abilities mostly being utility focused, not so much used as our main damaging abilities. That means we shouldn't struggle too much with both the Earth and the Fire dungeon. What we will, however, struggle with a little bit is going to be the Wind Dungeon. We don't hit many times. We only hit once with our Terra Ring, in fact, and we have one very important hit with our Flame Strike. So evasion is very rough to deal with. Evasive characters can literally try and walk through your traps and bypass their effects. It's just not very fun to fight Wind Dungeon at all. I would recommend you pick it up as your first dungeon, because you're also strong in that dungeon with your Flame Strike, with your Whimsical, and the Engulfing Fissure. Your overall theme here is quite strong into the Wind Dungeon, but not so much into the evasion kind of buff or status effect. It's not a status effect so much as it is a buff, actually. So Wind Dungeon is a little bit annoying. Other than Wind, I'd say Lightning is very easy due to Terra Ring being very strong there, and you generally not struggling a lot using your abilities against the Lightning elite enemies. Water shouldn't be too hard, though this is more so a melee build, so you run at risk of being frozen a lot. Just you have to be a lot more defensive in that dungeon. Fire is anti-melee, again similar to water. There's a lot of melee range abilities, or abilities that like to cancel you when you're in melee range and then the enemies follow up on you. So again, be slightly more defensive there. And whatever dungeon I missed shouldn't be... Right, Earth Dungeon shouldn't be a huge issue either. You should honestly be doing just fine there, because you don't run any projectiles, so you don't run at risk of being stunned by your own projectiles whatsoever. In fact, here, for once, which is quite special. I like projectile bursts a lot after all. Let's move on to my final section, recommended items and Arcana. Let's start things off with Arcana, as this is easily done. You just want anything that increases your survivability overall, due to you starting off with a lot less max HP. Anything that also grants you a decent amount of damage is neat, but you don't really need it overall. Terra Ring and Flame Strike will rapidly ramp up over the course of your run. You will notice yourself dealing a ton of extra damage the longer your run goes on for, provided that you find a decent variety of items to choose from that increase your damage dealt, whether it be by reducing your cooldowns, by increasing your base damage, or by straight up increasing your crit chance, which is probably my favorite for today's build here, overall my favorite pick that is. So I would highly recommend you pick up jumps. Jumps are awesome, especially Airborne Slam, because it's just so damn good. It has such a large coverage, but also similar jumps like Binary Splashdown or the Thunder Drop and similar jumps, Seismic Entry for example. It just doesn't really matter. Whichever jumps you come across, you should probably pick up just for a little bit of extra versatility, survivability, and damage dealt. They do everything that you could ever want for your personal build, for improving your personal build in one ability, which is very powerful. So they only use one slot. They don't require as much resources to be put into them, as you only need to enhance one ability, or you might just come across that enhancement immediately, which is just a huge amount of value in terms of gold, in terms of health points spared that you won't need to heal, that you won't need to worry about because you will actually have them and be able to invest them, so to speak. So jumps are a given, very easy, very to use. I also love Permafrost Bulwark as per usual with this build, even though the frost status effect, the freeze status effect rather, won't be too useful here, as poison lasts forever, while burn just ticks down very slowly, so your enemies either way will be unfrozen very frequently, immediately, pretty much after having been frozen. So Permafrost is only really good for defense, not so much for offense, I'd say, even though it does deal a great amount of damage. It does stack up neatly with the Terra Ring additionally, so you can essentially use Terra Ring in both the signature version as well as the base version, pushing enemies slightly away, then waiting for them to walk back into your proximity, then using your Permafrost to freeze them, especially when enhanced. It's going to be very good to deal a ton of damage when encasing yourself in the block of ice innately. So you use Terra Ring, you let enemies walk back into your rage, you encase yourself in a block of ice, then enemies take a bunch of damage, then you break free from that ice and they take a bunch of damage again, and by that time you should be having another Terra Ring open and at your disposal, which is insane. So synergy wise, it's very, very good if you don't intend to use your traps a lot. So I can only recommend it, really. It's a ton of fun, to be honest. Besides those abilities, you can obviously pick up like very high power abilities like Scales of Babylon, for example, for a lot of zoning, even though I wouldn't recommend it because it requires you to be in the middle of the pack, in the middle of action, and you only have one ability that covers a 360-degree area around you, which is your Terra Ring. So you would have to highly rely on that, which is just not very flawless by any means. It's quite a flawed playstyle. You're going to find yourself in the middle of action a lot, unable to do a whole lot, unable to control the situation decently well. So I would instead absolutely prefer, personally anyway, to remain in a corner or at least against walls instead of the middle of a room, and then finish enemies off piece by piece from there, or one by one rather. So I would not recommend abilities like Scales of Babylon, or even abilities like with a very long range, like long range large blast projectiles like an explosive fireball or bolt claimer. They work, of course they work. They deal a great amount of damage, have a great coverage, but they can kind of screw things up for you a little bit. If I did come across a bolt claimer, let me tell you, I would take it any damn day of the week. It's just so much damage. Everything that deals a large amount of damage and has a huge coverage pairs up well with Terra Ring overall, as you can literally just finish off enemies in these two ability uses, right? Your 1x ability and your Terra Ring ability, and boom, there you go, right? Just keep alternating between the two, but that's kind of boring. That's not really what we're going to be going here for today, so I won't recommend that for today's build approach. Let's get into the items, as there are plenty of things to mention here. For example, Family Seal, or Perfect Time Crystal, Volatile Gemstone, Surefire Rocket, anything that grants you a ton of signature charge, or that allows you to keep your signature charge nice and steady, is amazing. I won't get an Infinity Marble, right? You don't need to literally have to keep your signature bar steady. Just gain a lot more signature charge and preferably keep it up. So Gyroscopic Inkwell, Tattered Scroll, those are even very, very nice. Just a lot of signatures. Mwah! So damn fun to play around with. Let me tell you, Terra Ring is incredible when it comes to damage dealt. Also, additionally, as already mentioned many times in today's video, you should probably look forward to increasing your base damage dealt. There are many ways of doing that. I would highly recommend not picking up Double Trouble. It's just way too risky. For your build, you start on 300 max HP. You only have one ability dealing a ton of damage that you can quickly chug in with your Terra Ring, right? That is. So Double Trouble is never worth it, but pick up consistent damage increases like a luxury handbag or Titan's Equilibrium or similar items, really. Don't pick up an Evermore's Clog because fire is not going to be your main focus, but pick up anything that increases all your damage dealt, or your earth damage dealt more specifically, so your Terra Ring becomes the focus of the build. It should, after all, be the focus of the build. It is simply the best ability, and it's the one that is made viable, the easiest, and the most consistent. Which is great. So you should focus on Terra Ring pretty much every single time you build this, and only as a backup plan should you ever resort to stacking up a bunch of candies and gloves and basic Arcana related stuff, so that your Flame Strike will become the main focus of the build. As basic abilities find themselves being quite lackluster the longer a game goes on, for especially during the end stage of the game, your Ant boss more specifically, or Sora in this particular case, right? Sora is very, very hard to do with basic Arcana only, and it's quite a pain, so I can't recommend that. Just go for Terra Ring as your primary plan. That also means that cooldown reduction is going to be the end all be all. It's going to be super, super useful because it's a natural damage increase without having to find one of those niche base damage increases that affect Terra Ring. Other damage, as already mentioned, is going to be quite neat. It's going to be quite useful. Captain's Ring, Royal Flush are like small damage increases. Friendly Bracelet, friendly, not sure. Just get base damage increases, and then once you've acquired a decent amount of damage, if you still got slots open, go for a little bit of crit chance. If you find a Dark Katana, pick that up literally every time right away. It's gonna be an insane damage increase to your run overall, as it affects both your main damage tools with your Flame Strike and the Terra Ring. It's incredible. You have to have it. It's the #1 synergy with this build. If I didn't have Whimsical Explodium to fit today's build theme, I would have absolutely ran with the freaking Dark Katana. It has the starter relic. It's incredibly important and super, super good. You should run it every time. 10 out of 10, would recommend again. So, beside those very obvious items, there's nothing really worth mentioning. Most of the items that you're going to be running with this build are quite generic. You shouldn't run things like stones, or fairies, sprites, pixies, the ranged equivalent for stones, right? Because neither will you really need them, nor will you really keep them. The second you find something better, you will toss them into the flames, especially if you ever come across an adorable mimic. You're gonna sacrifice like 80 to 90% of the items that you can even buy in this game immediately, because damage is what you ultimately need to finish off your run, not healing, not armor. Even though I would recommend a slight bit of the latter, both armor and healing are decent as you start things off with a lot less HP and your build isn't super stable, it's not super consistent. You run traps, you rely on status effects a lot here and on hitting a rather short-ranged basic ability, so having a bit of defense to tie it all together is quite neat. You don't need a lot, maybe just a heavy travel jacket, or like one of the many cursed armors, Armor of Greed for example, or whatever the hell its equivalent is called that I always mix up with the Armor of Greed. They look so similar, I have no clue. Armor of Envy probably. Go for the one that makes you lose gold, not for the one that makes everything cost a lot more. Unless it's late game, in that case, it doesn't really matter which you pick. Midas items are also very, very useful because of both defense and utility. You can pretty much build anything except for, I'd say, except for fairies and except for stones. And like things that require you to be hit because you want to avoid being hit, or at least you want to mitigate damage taken. So Kasim's Airy Cloak, for example, right? That's a simple example, is going to be quite useful, while a Stygian Turtle Shell, which requires for you to be hit a ton, is not going to be as useful unless you fight Shu. Which we will be doing here today. I'd say let's get into the run, right? As we said, we're going to be trying to avoid Shu right away, if the game will let us, and apparently it will. That's great. Thank you very much. Yes. Let's go. Wind, fire, and lightning. Oh, Interesting. So we're gonna be on advantageous, then neutral, then advantageous ground. Ooh, that was a neat portrait of Zeal. Quick combo you can see there, just use a Terra Ring, follow that up with a Flame Strike. Terra Ring will stun lock enemies just enough so that we can follow that up with a Flame Strike, and vice versa, as you can see right there. Both of these abilities are decent for stun locking, and therefore can follow up each other decently well. You want to be quite aggressive here and not let these mages charge up another attack, or otherwise you won't be able to dodge it because you can't destroy the projectiles yet. So what will you do beside accidentally walking into pit or being shoved into it, or literally standing still and letting the projectiles hit you? Well, nothing. Really, there's nothing to do between the two. So you will simply have to deal with the projectiles somehow, and the better alternative is simply not letting the projectiles be shot out in the first place, by hindering the mages from doing so. I was quite hesitant there, simply because I'm a little sleepy, but trust me, that was not the perfect play. You should have just gone in right in after stunlocking the knights. Oh hi, still awake, huh? Fuck you, dude. Go to sleep. Take a nap. Bye-bye. Unalive yourself, my friend. You always want to avoid the Elemental Knight. He just deals a lot of extra damage. How do you like my trap? You have activated my trap card. Oh, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is so fucking cringe. Oh! I even killed the Elemental Rogue. Interesting, I did not expect that whatsoever. That was close. Just gonna use Terra Ring, so it will be off cooldown a little faster. Hey, Piñana. I don't think I can beat you yet. I deal very pathetic damage. I mean, I can try, but... Oh, that was close. And now I gotta wait out the poison, huh? Woo! Nice. Aqua Beam, that's gonna be neat into Zeal. A lot of range, so very neat in the boss fight. And of course, water is effective into fire, so that's great. It does force you to stand still for a while, but you can luckily cancel it, just dashing out of it. Dragon Blast is super duper strong. I would absolutely pick that up, or would have, rather, had we had to fight Atlas later, but since that isn't the case, I won't be picking it up. It's super, super strong for projectile destruction. Its damage dealt is massive, and the range, the coverage on it is insane too. Easily one of the greatest, probably most underrated support abilities in this game. Alright, what do we pick up here? Grease Boots is gonna be probably a waste of money. I should probably just upgrade my Toxic Trap instead, which would also then count as truthfully upgraded. So Grease Boots doesn't contribute to Luxury Handbag. In fact, Luxury Handbag would still lower your damage output. So Grease Boots is not great for this dash. It's 50 extra gold I gotta pay for a bit of cooldown reduction on a dash that doesn't have a large effect, even with cooldown reduction. So that's definitely not worth it. And I would possibly suffer from the aforementioned Luxury Handbag lowering my damage output, and a Titan's Equilibrium not unenhancing my Toxic Trap, which is something that I would absolutely want, as, again, the enhancement is completely useless except for these specific items, Luxury Handbag and Titan's Equilibrium. So that's a horrible choice. Otherwise, like with a decent dash, it would be amazing, but here it's horrendous. You should never buy this. Health Orbs would be a decent pick. Honestly, I'll get them because I don't have a lot of HP. And Graduation Cap, it's not great. It's just gem gain. Oh man, I'll just keep it. I might potentially find the counterpart to it. As I'm on 1-1, it is quite likely. I'd say anywhere past 2-1, unless I had a ton of money, I would never invest into this. Because Prestigious Diploma isn't super strong in the first place. Sure, you receive double item drops, but you have to find it first. And that's so abhorrently difficult. It's so rare. For whatever ungodly reason that you're just incredibly unlikely to ever find it. Oh, annoying room. Try and simply walk away to bait them into the trap. And then finish them off one by one. I would have just backed off there had I not killed anybody. After the Terra Ring, that is. It's just a very annoying room. But luckily the enemies are quite sluggish here, this early on. So we can abuse the hell out of them by simply walking back and forth, so to speak. Okay. I don't really need any of those right away, even though the armor could come in handy, so that enemies won't be able to crit on us. Simply boop him off so summons won't annoy me. Huh, still alive. Not sure I will be needing the piece of armor, the what's it called? Is it called a sweater jacket or like weather jacket or some shit? I believe it's supposed to be a sweater, so probably sweater jacket or some shit. What it does anyway is not allow for you to ever be hit by critical hits, which isn't immediate damage negation or mitigation, but it can literally negate damage entirely when enemies crit on you. They don't crit a lot, but when you raise the crit chance of enemies, and yourself in turn, by picking up a Clover, for example, they start critting a lot all of a sudden. And therefore, you will literally evade all the damage that is dealt to you by crits, which is crazy. It just doesn't set the crit chance of enemies to 0. No, instead what it does is literally erase all crits hitting you by evading them, guaranteed. Which is amazing. Because if it's set that enemies won't be able to crit, and it worked in the way that enemies are literally unable to roll a crit, they would always apply base damage to you. But the way things are, they can still crit on you, but they will be dealing 0 damage, not interrupting in the process. Which means that naturally you will be taking a lot less damage over the course of your run, which is incredibly valuable. Now, Armor of Greed is very good, I'd say. Glass Cannon is also very good for damage dealt, but it's not... It's incredibly risky. I don't have armor yet, and it will lower down my health past 300 max HP, which at that point, how much are we gonna have, like 230 or something? It's crazy dangerous to use. Does it take away like 20%? In that case, it'd be, what, a fifth? That's 240 HP that we'd still be left on. That's just so dangerous to use. I think I'd much prefer an Armor of Greed. And a way more defensive setup than anything else. Roxel's Pendulum is a lot of cooldown reduction, which is definitely decent as we are lacking a lot of damage right now. We could pick up a Stygian, as we will be fighting Shu and the Lightning Twins here. They do hit a lot, so Stygian can come in very handy. But Stygian always requires you to be hit a ton, which doesn't really happen in rooms, only in boss fights. And only really doing the Thunder Twins and doing Shu. So naturally this is not ever super strong in my book anyway. I'm not a Stygian fan anymore. I used to, but Kasim's is just so much more consistent over Stygian. However, I do kind of have a prerequisite set up here for Stygian Turtle Shell, advantageous to a Stygian Turtle Shell. Since I do have the Armor of Greed, I don't want to lose too much money, but I can take quite a punch, right? I can pack quite a punch and then activate the Stygian Turtle Shell. I'm not sure I want that. I'm really not that sure. I think I want Puffy Parker instead. It's a Parker, right? It's not like... oh my god, whatever the hell I said. It's a Parker. I'm stupid. I'm very much horrendous at remembering, like, accessory... dude, words are hard. Words are so hard, honestly. Let's be honest. Words are just way too hard. Do I grab glass cannon or armor or glass cannon, armor, glass cannon? You know what? I'll go with the glass cannon. 210! Oh, wow. That's a lot more HP than I remember. I thought it was 20%. That's gonna be painful. 210 is not a whole lot. Toxic Trap upgrade. Awesome. Thank you. I'm so happy. Too late. Oh man, things are gonna get quite rough here, I feel. At least we got a Puffy Parker, so without that I would have never picked up Glass Cannon. It's just way too risky that you'll die to an unfortunate sequence of critical hits that nobody could have ever expected or seen coming. Gonna burn Shu here right away for a little bit of damage. Get off the Terra Ring. Get off Arco Beam. Not gonna be using that whatsoever, but it's neat for a potential Captain's Ring fight. We have 4 different elements at this point. And it's enhanced, so again, it's gotta be neat for Equilibrium and Luxury Handbag. Nope. You're not gonna be doing that, buddy. Always stay close to the walls. You don't want to find yourself being stun locked by any of these guys. Don't want to be hit by any projectiles either. Oh no, I won't be able to use my signature. put down a trap because of the Lancer, let him walk into it. And then, due to the Sun Q, I will know where he's at. I will just keep trapping him, right? Let Lancers come to you. Don't ever make the mistake of trying to follow up on them. Again, let these guys come to you. You will know where they are, judging by the Sun Q of your traps. Oh shit. I did realize my mistake while jumping into it, right? That's the worst possible timing to realizing it. Just gonna hit both with the Aqua Beam, just for efficiency's sake. Speed things up a little bit. Oh my god. Very, very good shot. Now, the Quill is insanely strong. It's a ton of extra damage. However, with the caveat of, it's 175 gold, and I want these two badly. All these other 4 ones are signature charge related, but especially Surefire Rocket and Family Seal are incredibly strong. They don't require me to do anything at all. They work independently, and therefore Surefire is an easy pickup, regardless of whether it were on sale or not. I already do have a decent base damage amount due to the glass cannon. I don't need more base damage. Now, pairing this with a lot of cooldown reduction from Pendulum, along with the Surefire, so I'll be generating a ton of extra signature charge with both of these two. Means that I can use my signature a lot more often, which naturally will give me a ton of extra damage, much more than the Quill ever will be able to. Besides the fact that it gives me an immediate power spike, whereas the Quill takes a long-ass time to get going. I'm not gonna be struggling with Sura so much, because Sura is way in the future, right? Don't get me wrong. I might struggle at that point, but I'm not at that point yet. I have to get there first. And I'm already kind of struggling, at least a little bit. So it's highly advisable in my book to focus on my current struggles. And the current struggle is not base damage by any means. What is neat, I can still use that as I won't receive extra damage from like a double trouble, for example. And I have a decent health up find with the raspberry cookie box. So what is neat, I will likely not use it a lot. Hello, Dr. Sun. Let's hope we will find Engulfing Fissure upgrade. Otherwise, we'd have to buy 2 Arcana to trade with Dr. Sun. We can't destroy the integrity of our build after all. Of course, we did not find that, so we'd have to spend at least, what, like 150 G or something to compensate. We're not gonna be doing that. That's not kid around. So, we won't be able to use Dr. Song here, unfortunately. Especially not the healing part. It's way too early for that. Let's just bait them back. That's the smartest way to go about it. Instead of fighting in that... Oh, wow, he dashed right past. Instead of fighting in that crowded-ass room, keep your distance, take your time. Try and hit Vile around the corner. Just in case anybody sneaks past your trap, they will be viled. Because they always try to cut corners. They always gotta walk the shortest possible path towards you. Family Seal or Cartographers is just a lot more impactful than Family Seal, I gotta say. Like, Rocket is incredibly good, don't get me wrong. Rocket with the Seal especially. Oh no, I didn't mean to dash there. Gotta hit the Archer too, to make sure he dies. Come here. Okay, but increasing our base damage drastically, along with increasing our overall signature charge gain drastically, is just so much more impactful than increasing our signature charge gain slightly could ever be. Now, unfortunately, I don't have enough money to purchase another standard ability, which never cost 50 or like 100 for some reason. 100 only when you enhance an already owned ability, which is just kind of annoying, to be honest. So I can use Dr. Song here. Otherwise, I would have been able to trade my Engulfing Fissure for any ability, and then I'd have likely 2 unenhanced standards with the Aegis, and Dr. Song always prefers an unenhanced ability over an enhanced ability, so I wouldn't use my Engulfing Fissure, and I'd still be able to trade. Which, let's be fair, it's barely ever worth it anyway. She probably would have given me something healing related. Great! We grouped up all of them. Oh no, I hit the statue. I meant to hit all of the black guys there, but I hit the statue accidentally. I would have had to cancel the Arcana anyway, but I just wanted to get a quick hit in on all of them. Oh, okay, just use the signature. It's a very tough room, very easy to get stun locked. And I made a huge misplay there. Come around the corner, friends, and into the traps. Thank you very much. Double Earth. Sure. Ooh. Gabby's raw chocolate and a bunch of money. Thank you very much. Dust of the Nemesis could come in very handy in case we ever come across a Clover, which will now be very useful thanks to the Puffy Parka. Soccer Cleats we can't really use. I don't have anything movement related beside the Aegis. Spell Thieves are okay, Rubber is okay, but Dice would be a decent chunk of extra damage dealt. Let's not walk back. That way is kind of tedious and way too long anyway. Let's just teleport. Hello, exit. I was too slow. I was too slow again. Let's just sidestep. That's much more convenient anyway. No, I missed again. I meant to angle the Arco Beam there, but I missed entirely. Just take it very slowly, kill these guys first, and then Arco Beam. I keep hitting walls. This ain't even funny. It's not funny because I can die here very easily. I need to be hit more than 3 times, but 3 times with a hefty hit, that's a Stomper, for example, for 50 damage. Or just be stun locked briefly by a Robe. That'll work too. Let him walk around the traps, man. Nope. I'm gonna use the room available to me. This is a trap setup. I am a trapper. I'm not meant to be aggressive. I'm meant to be defensive and passive and let the enemies kill themselves, right? Okay, the Saber here, that's a lot of extra base damage, but everything will be much more expensive afterwards, which I'm fine by. I have a lot of decent items. I will purchase dice here right away. %, still missing the area up here. No Engulfing Fissure upgrade, that's a little bit saddening. So let's head towards the exit here. No, thank you. I guess I'll pick up the Saber. Why not? Zeal, zeal, zeal. How's it going, girl? Aegis is a little slow. I don't think I can use the base version. I think it's way too slow and endangering me. And the durability is probably horrible too. No! My Aqua Beams today are so horrendous. Sure, I can actually use that decently well. And it's neutral for the final stage here, which is nice. I like it. Don't want to walk too far, I don't know what's in that room. I'm sure enemies will be awaiting me in here. Nope, never mind, it's all clear. Thank you, Seekers, for your sweet, sweet AoE damage. Let's clear this once and for all. I do have quite a nice health orb find percentage, so yeah. Just want to break all the obstacles for a lot of free health orbs. Hurry up! Aw, come on. Engulfing Fissure, hell yep, but I won't pick that up yet. Exactly, you are why. I'll just walk back. Now, what will I go for? Binary Splashdown is nice. It won't be good for the stage, but it could be useful for the boss fight. Other than that, I don't think I want any of these. I could grab the root ability for the boss fight, but Seekers are a lot more impactful overall. But the root ability is another trap ability. So maybe I should actually pick that up. It's entirely for free, right? It's a lot worse for crowd control over the these Seekers, but it is a root ability. It is a trap ability. It pairs very well with Engulfing Fissure. Oh man. Already regretting this decision. Flak would have been nice early on. I definitely won't need it at this point. I don't really need any of them. Could grab the Limo sleeve, arguably so. You sly son of a bitch! All of that keeps happening because I just keep misaiming my rooting ability. Could grab the Limo sleeve. I'm just not sure, man. I just don't like using Limo sleeves. No, I won't. Got everything? Yeah, I do. While the root ability is kind of wonky to hit, it does deal a ton of damage. Immediately on impact to the to bosses, for example, right, and larger enemies. And then it also roots and poisons small enemies, so it's very useful either way. I should get into a habit of breaking free from my Aqua Beam more frequently. I keep letting it simmer for way too much. I lose a lot of charges that way. Oh yeah, that's what we call volcanic combo, motherfucker. Fuck you guys. Paranomassacon. I don't think I can take more damage, my friend. I mean, great offer, but honestly, I have to decline. Oh no, dude. I'm way too hasty. Ooh, he was very nimble. Thanks for the chest, you guys. Maybe I will pick up the para. We'll see. At the end of the stage. I don't want to take more damage from like enemies. Just use the roots here as a barricade. So I have a fallback safe space. Blazing Rod. Oh, that's very, very nice. A little late, unfortunately. I already got Binary Splashdown, which is going to be a lot less useful. And very, very slow to hit. Doesn't deal a great amount of damage. It's really not one of the best jumps. I love it. I used to love it. I've always loved it. But really, it's not that good. Especially its damage isn't very, very sunshine and rainbows by any means. Of course, another room where I can use my signature. Of course I could start the boss fight right away, but I don't really feel like it. No. These items kind of suck. Albert's formula? No, I don't think so. I don't think I can use it. Heavy travel jacket also is like at best. It's better than the purse, that's for sure. So I'll pick that up for a bit bit of defense. I don't think I can keep the purse. I don't think I can really warrant that. Like, I would be getting 1 free purchase at Sora, but doesn't really do much for me besides that. There's just so much healing at Sora. I would get at least 1 free purchase, more likely 2. With the Paramassacre, probably just 1 because I damaged myself for more every time I took an item. Not sure what I want to do, honestly. In my book, I don't really have room for a Paramassacre. I deal a decent amount of damage. Graduation is going to be useless at this point, so I'll toss it back on the floor. Para is just okay, but it's so damn risky. I really don't have a lot of defense. I'll pick it up. I will likely kill myself at Sora, but maybe not. We'll see. And due to me having picked this up, I'll probably drop this and pick back up what? Since the Raspberry Box won't do me any good at this point. I'm relatively sure. There's just so much healing here anyway. Jump? No. Aqua Beam? Yes. Alright, let's go. Let's walk forth a little forward. Just a little forward. Come on. Let me... No. Let me walk, please. Trap. Boom. Look at that damage. Boom. And there we go. Cool. It's all about setup. Hell yeah, baby! Well, I won't be fully healed, but I think that's okay. Let's swap for the Sora fight. Want to take another element just because of that potential Captain's Ring. Not sure I would actually take a Captain's Ring, but it's always neat to prepare for it anyway. Don't care much about taking damage here. Woo, mama. No, these items suck donkey dick. Let's purchase the regenerative blades of sympathy. I definitely won't be needing a purse, dude. Like, oh, man. Probably stone over chocolate. Is that it? I think we're done here. Oh boy, wish me luck! This is gonna be rough. Very, very rough. I don't want Stormdraft here, it's just kind of too clunky to use. It does destroy a projectile's hit, but Aqua Beam does a lot more damage, I'm pretty darn sure. Gotta stay in stone range. And there we go. Let's just wait for our cooldowns real quick. And mentally prepare for what's about to come. The pounding that we will receive. The beating! No, not my virgin asshole! Oh, dude! hell yeah, dude! Oh, flawless! Basically, right? Did I get hit once? I think I did. But damn, that was nice. Holy shit! That went over very fast, thanks to cartographers and Paranormasic on there in the late game. Didn't actually get to stick my cartographers for all that much. I'm just now seeing that I should have. I can't talk today, man. What the fuck is going on? What kind of tumor is possessing my brain again? I don't know. I should have presumably, very likely actually, switched out Whimsical Explodium for the Cabby's Raw Chocolate, but come on. I kept build integrity until the very minute, so. Yeah. Screw you, Sarah. That was hella fun. Very intense, but also very, very fun. I've just gotten so terrible at the Sura fight for some reason. Ever since I stopped playing Boss Rush, where everything is so much harder and faster, I just stopped being good at beating Sura. It's just, oh man. I don't know what it is. It's probably that I actually just simply get a lot less practice. I don't play this game all that much nowadays. I still love playing it, don't get me wrong, but I have done everything I ever wanted to achieve in this game. I have had my fair share of hundreds of hours in this game. I think I'm comfortably sitting at, what, like 800, 700 something hours in this game currently. I used to have like 300 or so, like double that due to content creation. Right, I just love this game. It's great. Then I have a lot of other games that also interest me a lot and that I'd like to play here in the nigh future. Maybe even record and publish my own builds again, as that is something that I really enjoy thoroughly. Not just in Wizard of Legend, but generally speaking. I love toying around, finding wonky stuff, defining my own playstyle and redefining it over and over again, and simply bringing people to play this game. And more importantly, providing creative ideas of playing this game to people that already play it. That are already interested in the game. That's why I'm doing all of this. Really, it's just a hell of a fun ride, really, to me personally. But now, excuse me, I gotta finally hit up work. It's been a hot minute. I finally gotta get going. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you had a great time. I hope you learned something from today's build, maybe got a new fantastic build idea for what you can do, for what natural catastrophes you can model in this game, or simply for, yeah, this overall build. It's kind of wonky, let's be honest. There's a lot of wonky stuff going on here, but it ended up working out quite neatly as I expected. Very, very fun build overall. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, you know how it is, you know how it goes. I wish you all a good morning, a good day, or a good night, and bye-bye.